Babar at Home by Jean de Brunhoff. There was great excitement in Celesteville on the day that General Cornelius proudly proclaimed that King Babar and Queen Celeste were about to have a baby. In the palace, while he waited, Babar tried to read, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He tried to write, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He thought of his wife and of the baby who was going to be born. Celeste advised him to take a bicycle ride as a means of changing his thoughts. When he had ridden several miles, Babar sat down and looked at the view of Celesteville and the fort of St. John. "It is from there," he said to himself, "that the cannon announcing the birth will be fired." Just at that moment, boom! "There it is," Babar thought. "How unfortunate that I have missed the event." Jumping on his bicycle, he tore home at top speed. Boom! A second cannon shot, and boom! A third! What did it mean? On the terrace walk, the elephants began to assemble and talk. King Babar had not spoken of more than one cannon shot. Why had the artillery fired 3 shots? Cornelius himself could not understand it. Babar arrived home breathless after his speedy ride. Running upstairs 4 steps at a time, he burst into Celeste's room. With joy, he embraced his wife. She smiled at him and showed him 3 baby elephants. Everything was explained. 3 cannon shots, 3 babies. But what a surprise! Arthur and Zephyr were very excited. Babar let them take a peep at the new babies. "Oh, how small they are," said Zephyr. "And how pretty," added Arthur, admiring the baby in the cradle. Celeste had only one cradle, so they had made another one out of a basket, a napkin, and an umbrella. Babar and Celeste had to think of 3 names for their babies. Before they arrived, they had thought of several: Pom, Pat, or Peter, Julius, John, or Jack. But what if it were a girl? Juliet, Virginia, or... "We must now decide," said Celeste. "I should like our daughter to be called Flora." "And I think we might call the 2 boys Pom and Alexander," said Babar. After they had repeated several times, "Pom, Flora, and Alexander," Babar and Celeste cried, "Good! We will decide on those names." Every week, Dr. Capulos weighed the babies carefully in his big scales. One day he said to Celeste, "Oh, Queen, the babies are not growing fast enough. Every day you must put a big tablespoonful of honey into their usual feed." The babies soon grew used to their bottles. Arthur and Zephyr loved to watch them drink. The greediest and biggest was Pom, the one Celeste is holding. He cried every time he finished his bottle. Soon the children began to play in their large sunny nursery. Often Babar came to play with them. Sometimes he sat Pom on his trunk and jumped him up and down. This is the game of Hop the Trunk. One day, while out walking the children, the nurse said to Arthur, "It's colder than I thought. The house is not far away. I will run and fetch the babies' jerseys so that they won't catch cold. Will you look after them while I am gone?" Feeling very proud, Arthur pushed the pram to and fro. All at once he heard the soldiers and turned to look at them. The road sloped gently at that point, and the pram began to roll away by itself. Pom, Flora, and Alexander thought this great fun, but Arthur was frightened and ran after them. The slope became steeper and steeper. The pram ran faster and faster. The children began to be frightened. Arthur ran after them as hard as he could. The nurse, returning with the jerseys, ran too with her heart in her mouth. The danger grew great. A little lower down, the road turned and ran along the side of a deep ravine. If the pram were not stopped before the turn, it would run straight on, and then an accident. Martha, the tortoise, who was walking nearby, realized the situation. She ran as fast as her little legs could go and threw herself in front of the wheels of the pram just as it was about to fall over the precipice. The pram stopped suddenly. Pom and Flora were thrown into the hood and caught there, but poor Alexander was shot out. The nurse shrieked, "Ah!" and the rabbit ran away. Mr. and Mrs. Squirrel also heard the nurse's shriek, and next moment the noise of leaves crackling and branches breaking just above them to the left. Both together they looked up and saw the head of a little elephant, who cried, "Mummy, Alexander has gone bump! Mummy, Alexander has gone bump!" "Courage, little elephant! Don't let go! We are coming!" cried the squirrels. "Swing yourself a little and try to put your foot on the thick branch. Don't be afraid. We'll help you." The plan having succeeded, Mr. Squirrel continued, "Hold tight to my tail. To balance yourself, wave your great big ears about." Alexander recovered from his fright, but how was he to get down from the tree? Fortunately, a tall giraffe was passing by and came to his help. He set Alexander on his head, and Babar arrived just in time to gently catch the little elephant. Some months later, Babar decided to arrange a picnic. The weather was glorious, the family in high spirits. Cornelius got very hot, but he managed to keep up with the others. Hungry and tired, they gladly settled down to a delicious lunch. After lunch, Celeste wandered off. Babar went fishing in the river nearby. Cornelius, stretched out in the shade, fell asleep. Alexander took the opportunity of creeping under Cornelius's bowler hat and walking about, taking very small steps. "What a funny tortoise," said Pom. Playing about, they reached the riverbank, and then Alexander had another idea. He put the hat in the water. "What a fine boat," he said, and got into it. It floated. It was wonderful. But all at once a crocodile appeared. Alexander turned around. "Oh, Papa!" he screamed. When Babar saw the crocodile, he roared with anger. Without hesitating, Babar threw the anchor of the boat into the jaws of the monster. The crocodile, caught like a little fish in his rage, lashed out with his tail. The hat, drawn into the eddy, sank, and Alexander fell into the water. Babar dived in and groped about with his trunk. He felt something. Thank goodness, it was Alexander's ear. Quickly pulling him to the surface, he revived him. As for the crocodile, he swam about frantically, but he could not free himself from the anchor or from the boat. Babar asked the birds to go and reassure Celeste. "Ask her to get dry clothes ready for us and prepare hot drinks. And you little ducks, will you be so kind as to dive and bring up my crown and the hat, which are at the bottom of the river?" Alexander embraced his mother joyfully. She washed him and rubbed him hard to get him warm, and then put him to bed and covered him up with 2 thick blankets. Arthur, Zephyr, Pom, and Flora were still very frightened. The great flamingo brought back the crown and Cornelius's hat. "Oh, thank you," said Babar. "The hat is rather wet and battered, but Cornelius will be pleased because it is an old souvenir." Now all the elephants were asleep. Babar and Celeste were also soon going up to bed. They were gradually regaining their calm after all the excitement. "Truly, it is not easy to bring up children," said Babar, "but aren't they worth it? I don't know what we should do without them." The end.